Have you ever wondered why some vintage muscle cars still command respect the moment they fire up even 50 years later? What made once Pacific Chevelle so powerful that street racers in the 1970s either wanted to race it or avoid it completely? And how did a factory-built machine from 1970 manage to push well over 450 horsepower with nothing but raw American engineering and a driver brave enough to control it? Because today we're diving into one of the most legendary classic American cars ever built, the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 396 with a 4-speed. A street monster that defined the golden era of vintage muscle cars. Back in the late 1960s, America was in the middle of what enthusiasts now call the muscle car wars. Every major automaker wanted the same thing: domination of the streets. Ford had the Cobra at Mustangs. Dodge was unleashing brutal big block Chargers. Pontiac had the GTO, already a street legend. And Chevrolet, they had a weapon that was about to become one of the most feared, forgotten legends of us cars. The Chevelle. Originally introduced as Chevrolet's midsize car, the Chevelle started off fairly modest. But by the end of the 1960s, something changed. Engineers realized the platform could handle something bigger, something meaner. So in 1970, Chevrolet redesigned the Chevelle completely. The body became wider, more aggressive, with bold lines and a stance that looked ready to launch even when parked. The grille looked angry. The rear had a muscular presence. And the whole car carried that unmistakable American attitude. But the real magic wasn't the body. It was what sat under the hood. The 1970 Chevelle SS 396 came equipped with a massive big block V8 known as the LS5 396 engine. Officially, Chevrolet rated it had around 350 horsepower. But anyone who drove one knew those numbers were conservative. In reality, many of these engines were easily pushing well over 400 horsepower. And with the right tuning, some builds were hitting 450 horsepower or more. That kind of power in a street car during 1970 was almost ridiculous. And the torque, brutal. The moment you touched the throttle, the Chevelle didn't just accelerate. It lunged forward like it had something to prove. But horsepower alone didn't make this machine special. The real experience came from the transmission. Many enthusiasts chose the legendary Muncie 4-speed manual. And that's where things got serious. No traction control. No stability management. No electronic safety nets. Just a clutch, a gear lever, and a big block V8 waiting to unleash chaos. Driving the 1970 Chevrolet SS 396 with a 4-speed meant you were fully connected to the machine. Every shift mattered. Every launch required skill. And if you got it right, the reward was pure adrenaline. Drop the clutch, and the rear tires would instantly fight for grip. The engine would roar through the headers. The nose would lift slightly. And suddenly you were rocketing down the street in one of the most iconic classic American cars ever created. That raw experience is exactly why enthusiasts still talk about these vintage muscle cars with so much respect today. Back in the early 1970s, the Chevelle quickly earned a reputation on American streets. It wasn't just fast, it was intimidating. Drivers would hear that deep big block rumble before they even saw the car. And once the Chevelle pulled up next to them at a stoplight, they knew exactly what kind of machine they were dealing with. Because when the light turned green, the SS 396 didn't hesitate. Quarter-mile times for a well-driven Chevelle could drop into the low 13-second range, which was incredibly fast for a factory car in that era. Some modified examples even pushed into the 12-second territory, turning the car into a legitimate street terror. And remember, this wasn't some lightweight sports car. The Chevelle was a big, heavy American machine, which made its performance even more impressive. The sound alone was unforgettable. That big block V8 produced a deep, thunderous rumble that echoed through neighborhoods and down long highway stretches. It was the kind of sound that made people turn their heads instantly. For many enthusiasts, this wasn't just transportation. It was freedom. It was the golden age of classic American cars, when horsepower ruled the road and the driver's right foot decided everything. But like many rare vintage car stories, the Chevelle's dominance didn't last forever. By the mid-1970s, stricter emissions laws, rising insurance costs, and the oil crisis began killing off high-performance engines. The muscle car era started fading faster than anyone expected. Cars like the Chevelle SS slowly disappeared from showrooms. And for years, many people believed those machines were gone for good. But something interesting happened decades later. Enthusiasts began rediscovering them. Collectors started searching garages, barns, and forgotten storage units across America. Restorations began bringing these machines back to life. And suddenly, the same Chevelles that once ruled the streets were becoming some of the most desirable classic American cars on the planet. Today, a clean 1970 Chevelle SS 396 can sell for astonishing prices at auctions. Some restored examples easily cross six figures, depending on originality and condition. And numbers matching cars? Those are even more valuable. But for most enthusiasts, the real value isn't the price. It's the legacy. Because the 1970 Chevelle SS 396 represents something special in automotive history, a moment when American engineers pushed performance to the absolute edge and created one of the greatest vintage muscle cars ever built. Even today, when you see one rolling into a car meet or cruising down a highway, it still has the same presence it had over 50 years ago. That long hood, that aggressive stance, that unmistakable V8 rumble. It reminds people of a time when driving was raw, loud, and unapologetically powerful. A time when the streets belonged to machines like the Chevelle. And that's exactly why this car remains one of the most respected forgotten legends of us cars, and one of the most unforgettable rare vintage car stories from the golden era of American muscle. If you want to see more legendary cars and their stories come to life, make sure you subscribe.